Hey guys, tonight we're heading into the dry winds of an old Arabian tale, where dusty sandals slap against gravel roads, and whispering skulls interrupt perfectly good plans for petty theft. You're not a hero tonight. Far from it. You're a thief, a hungry, sunburned, mildly unlucky thief. The kind of thief who doesn't rob rich merchants or jewel-covered princesses. No, you mostly steal figs, and not even ripe ones. The desert heat hasn't let up for days, and the city's walls shimmer like mirages in the distance. You trudge forward, your stomach growling in rhythm with your footsteps. There's a blister on your left heel that feels like it's learned to blink, and your last drop of water was a memory 5 hours ago. Around you, the landscape is flat and unforgiving. Not quite desert, not quite life. You're the only moving thing in sight, besides a goat in the distance that may or may not be following you. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're already tucked in, tell me where you're listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing the sleep circle this little project has made. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You weren't always this pitiful. Once, you were nearly apprenticed to a calligrapher. That lasted 2 days before they caught you sketching rude faces on scrolls meant for the mosque. Your fallback plan was general mischief, and so far, it's kept you fed, sometimes. But today, not so much. You drift toward the city's edge, where the houses are crumbling and the air smells like dust and cumin. To your left is the market, full of people you owe money. To your right, the graveyard, empty, quiet, and most importantly, free of living creditors. You slip into it like a shadow, hoping to find shade beneath the warped stone markers. Some are centuries old, written in Kufic script so weathered it looks like scratch marks. Here's a fact. Medieval Islamic graveyards weren't always the solemn places you imagine. Some were lively hangouts. People picnicked there, read poetry aloud, even played board games among the tombs. Today, though, this one is eerily silent. No chessboards, no picnics, just you and the uneasy whisper of wind. You find a cracked mausoleum wall to lean against, shielding your eyes from the punishing sun. The ground here is coarse, littered with broken pottery and bone fragments that no one's bothered to rebury. There's a slight hum in the air, like bees, but deeper, like something is speaking below your hearing. And then you hear it, a voice, clear, right behind you. Hungry? It asks, almost kindly. You whip around, hand already on the rusty dagger tucked into your belt. Nothing, just graves, sand, a few pebbles skittering down a slope, and then, right by your foot, something round and white. It's a skull, half buried in the earth, one empty eye socket staring directly at you. You lean in closer, squinting. Definitely a skull. Human. Too small to be an ox. The jawbone twitches. I said. The skull says again, more sharply this time. Hungry? You fall backward with a yell that only startles one nearby bird, who clearly couldn't care less. Don't scream. The skull adds. You'll wake the boring dead. It's not until the third sarcastic comment that you believe it's real. Your mind isn't that sun-baked. You're actually talking to a skull. Or rather, it's talking to you. You stare at it, unsure of the appropriate etiquette here. Do you bow? Offer a compliment on its bone structure? Finally, you manage? Are you cursed? Not exactly, says the skull, its jaw clicking. But I'm not here for decoration either. Now here's the historical part. Talking skulls aren't uncommon in ancient stories. From China to Scandinavia, they show up with suspicious frequency, usually warning of doom, treasure, or ironic endings. In 10th century Baghdad, stories of wise skulls passed around among philosophers and poets, often as metaphors for forgotten knowledge or lost causes. But back to you. You crouch, staring. What do you want from me? The skull sighs. I'm offering you gold. Actual gold. Buried not far from here. You just have to follow my instructions. And you mustn't tell anyone. You blink. Wait, real gold? No, figment gold. It snaps. Yes, real gold. But there's a cost. There's always a cost. You must swear, the skull says solemnly, that you will carry me with you, that you will not speak of me to a living soul, that you will retrieve what I ask without question, and if you break your vow, it doesn't finish the sentence, which is worse than finishing it. Historians still argue whether medieval tales like these were warnings about greed, allegories for moral decay, or just plain ghost stories told to entertain tired guards at city gates. The skull adds, conversationally, like a tour guide. You hesitate. Your stomach growls again. How much gold? You ask. The skull grins. Or maybe it always looks like that. Enough to buy a new name, a house with stairs, and dates that don't have worms in them. A little dramatic, but tempting. You glance back at the city. You'd never make it far alone. But with a guide, even one made of calcium and sass, you nod. I'll do it, you say. The skull glows faintly in the evening light. Good, it whispers. Now dig. Your fingers claw into the warm soil as the sun begins its slow crawl toward the horizon. The graveyard glows amber, its shadows longer and deeper now. You dig with your bare hands. No shovel, no tools, just determination, and the slight suspicion that this is all an elaborate prank staged by ghosts with too much time on their skeletal hands. The skull offers commentary the whole time. Left. More to the left. No, your left. Honestly, it's like watching a camel try to thread a needle. You mutter something under your breath. I heard that. The skull says, its jaw clicking with what might be amusement. Careful with the attitude. I'm the only one here who knows where the treasure is, and the only one who doesn't need to breathe. You scoop out another pile of sand. Beneath it, your fingers strike something harder than dirt. Not quite stone, not quite metal. You scrape carefully. A box, wood, blackened with age, bound with iron hinges. It's the kind of thing someone might bury if they were trying to keep it very hidden. With a grunt, you pull the box free. It's heavier than it looks. The skull's voice softens. Well then, that's the easy part done. You place the skull atop the box like a crown, and for a moment, everything is still. Then the box vibrates, just a little, like something inside it is breathing or whispering. You glance at the skull. It's not cursed, right? The skull tilts slightly. Define cursed. You back up. This is where your average folktale hero might run. But you've just crawled out of a sun-baked graveyard with a talking skull and a box full of secrets. You're in too deep to be smart about this now. So you open it. Inside is gold. Real gold. Coins, beads, a few ornaments, some clearly from different eras, mismatched like a museum clearance bin. One coin in particular catches your eye. It bears the image of Caliph Harun al-Rashid, known for his justice, poetry, and fondness for disguising himself to spy on his own people. He ruled during the so-called Golden Age of Islam, when Baghdad was the intellectual heart of the world. A time when science, music, and philosophy flowered, even as thieves like you still plied their dusty trade. Is this stolen? You ask. Of course it is, says the skull, offended. Where else would you get treasure? A legal merchant stall? Fair point, but you've heard the stories. Ancient gold comes with ancient problems, curses, vengeance, ancestral guilt, sometimes even talking cats. But none of those stories mention skulls that offer a cut of the loot. What now? You ask. already tucking coins into a pouch with professional speed. "Now," says the skull, "we go shopping, but quietly." You pause. "You mean, take you with me?" Did I stutter? "Yes, I'm not just decorative. I'm the brains of this operation." You stare at the skull. Then, with a shrug that would make any grave robber proud, you wrap it in an old scarf and tie it to your back like a particularly bony bundle. As you climb out of the graveyard, the last of the sun dips behind the horizon. The city's walls glow faintly in the distance, lanterns flickering to life one by one. It's time to return. "Any rules I should know?" you ask. The skull hesitates. "Yes. 1. Don't talk about me. 2. Don't try to sell me. 3. If you try to melt the coins, you'll probably explode." You stop mid-step. "Explode?" "Probably." You said probably. "There's historical precedent." The skull says, "During the reign of Al-Mu'tadid, someone tried melting down a cursed amulet for the gold, turned into ash. Then a goat sneezed on his remains. Historians still argue whether that story was invented by jewelers to raise prices." The skull adds, "You enter the city through the southern gate, your coin pouch heavier and your dignity lighter. The guards barely glance at you. You look poor, you smell poor, you're beneath suspicion. Perfect. The streets are alive with noise, donkey carts, shouted prayers, sizzling street food, and the ever-present muttering of someone's grandmother. You pass a fruit seller balancing peaches like delicate relics. A child runs past, clutching a stolen pomegranate. No one gives chase. It's that kind of night. As you move deeper into the alleys, the skull murmurs directions. "Left here, past the goat with the limp? Yes? That one? Why do you know the city so well?" You whisper. "I used to live here. You walnut. In the days when scholars walked these streets, not merchants. I had a body, a name, a problematic beard." You raise an eyebrow? "And what happened to it?" The skull clicks its jaw. "It's complicated." "Fair enough. Everyone's got baggage. Yours just talks." You arrive at a small, crumbling courtyard, lined with shuttered shops and one crooked minaret that leans like it's tired of standing. The skull instructs you to knock on a door with a faded blue crescent painted on it. "Here," you whisper. "Yes," the skull says. "Ask for tea. Nothing more." You knock. A slot opens. 2 eyes peer out. You say the words, "Tea." The door creaks open. Inside is a room packed with rugs, lanterns, spices, and at least 7 cats. The woman who owns them all glances at you, sniffs, then gestures toward a corner. You sit. She serves you tea that tastes like sleep and secrets. You place a single gold coin on the table. She doesn't blink. Instead, she slides a satchel toward you. Thick, leather, and full of things that smell like wax. Oil and iron. "What is it?" you whisper. "Tools," says the skull. For the next step, you sip your tea, trying to look casual, but inside, your stomach turns. Because now it's real. The skull has gold. The skull has plans. And you? You have a date with the sheikh's treasure vault. You leave the tea seller's den with the satchel slung across your shoulder and a slight tremor in your step. The cats didn't blink the entire time. One licked its paw like it was planning something. You don't ask questions. The skull, still wrapped tightly in your scarf, hums softly as you walk, like it's enjoying the night air, or plotting, probably both. "Let's talk about the sheikh," it says as casually as someone suggesting a scenic route. "Which sheikh?" you ask. Not because you don't know. There's only one sheikh that anyone in this city whispers about when gold is involved, but because denial is a coping strategy. The one who keeps his treasure vault under a bathhouse. Paranoid, cruel, smells like cinnamon and doom. You groan. "Sheikh Kamal ibn Barakat?" "The same," the skull says. Far too cheerfully. former spice trader turned obsessive collector of rare objects, including at least one severed toe from a Persian prophet and a tile from the first mosque in Andalusia. Historians still argue whether that tile ever actually left Spain. The skull adds, scholarly and smug. You sigh. Everyone knows about Sheikh Kamal. He built his mansion like a fortress. Guards patrol the walls. There's said to be a moat, not of water, but of scorpions. The bathhouse entrance is a front. The real vault is below the tiles, guarded by a combination of iron mechanisms, black market poisons, and probably 3 curses. Minimum. Don't worry, the skull says, sensing your panic. You won't be breaking in. Not yet. First, we gain access legally. You raise an eyebrow so hard it nearly leaves your forehead. You're going to apply for access? In a manner of speaking, the skull says, you spend the next day slipping into the role of someone completely un-you. A courier, a servant, a spice vendor's nephew. You borrow identities like sandals, quickly, and only if they fit well enough not to trip you up. The skull coaches you between lies. Smile more. Not like that. That's a confessing smile. You bribe a guard with a particularly shiny coin. You deliver a forged message to the head of household staff. You drop enough names to sound like a cousin of someone important. By evening, you're inside the outer compound. Apprenticed to the tanner who supplies leather for the sheikh's prized sandal collection. Sandals? You whisper to the skull that night as you hide in a dusty storage room, unrolling your sleeping mat beside a stack of goat hides. The man has 87 pairs, the skull says, and 1 human footstool. Don't ask. You lie back, staring at the cracked ceiling. The air smells like vinegar and regret. The sheikh's estate is as lavish as the stories said. Walls inlaid with blue glazed tiles, peacocks that walk like they own the place, and fountains that smell faintly of rosewater and bleach. But you're not here for the view. You're here for the vault, or more specifically, for what's inside it. Tell me again why we're doing this, you murmur. The coin you found was just the beginning. The skull whispers from its hiding place in your satchel. There's something older in that vault, something that belonged to me. You blink. Wait, you were buried with treasure? No, the skull says, annoyed. I was buried because of it. That shuts you up. Here's a fact. In some parts of the medieval Islamic world, scholars who studied forbidden sciences, alchemy, necromancy, astrology, were buried in unmarked graves, their works confiscated or destroyed. Some say the caliphs feared their influence. Others claim the scholars knew too much about the heavens, and not enough about the consequences of meddling with them. You don't know what the skull was in life, but you're starting to suspect it wasn't just a chatterbox with a talent for sarcasm. The next morning, you scrub sandals. That's not a metaphor. You literally scrub sandals. The sheikh's prized collection, arranged by leather tone, shape, and tragic backstory. You polish ones supposedly worn during the siege of Damascus. You dust a pair with gold stitching and a faint scent of murder. While you work, you listen. Servants talk, guards gossip. Rich people assume the poor are deaf. You learn that the bathhouse is cleaned every 3rd evening, that the guard shifts change every 8th hour, and that the only key to the lower vault is worn on a chain by the sheikh's personal valet, a man named Jibril who hates spicy food and sings when he thinks no one's listening. The skull offers suggestions. Bribe him with tamarind sweets, switch the key during his bath, kidnap him and impersonate his accent. You choose the middle option, less messy, less singing. That night, while Jibril lounges in the servant hammam, you slip in, smiling like you belong. You bring him tea, you compliment his shoes, you wait until his eyes close. And then, with hands steadier than they've ever been, you unclasp the chain around his neck. The key is warm, heavy, not symbolic heavy, like it will leave a dent in your chest heavy. You return it before he wakes. You only needed to make a wax imprint. The skull is giddy. "You're doing wonderfully," it says, like a grandmother who once taught curses instead of baking. You roll your eyes, and that's when it hits you. You've made a pact with a skull. You're infiltrating a sheikh's fortress. You're impersonating a sandal cleaner. And you're about to rob a vault so cursed, even the guards pretend it doesn't exist. Maybe you should have stuck to stealing figs. You've never been this clean in your life. The sheikh's compound requires its servants to bathe daily, sometimes twice if they're near the spice rooms. And you've begun to smell like citrus and goat soap. The skull says it's unsettling. "I'm used to you reeking like anxiety and old bread," it mutters from the bottom of the satchel. You zip the bag shut halfway. It's been 4 days of surveillance, lies, and general skullduggery, but you're close. The key's wax imprint has been molded. A copy is cooling under your sleeping mat. The guards on the night shift now recognize your face well enough not to notice it anymore. And you've mapped out the route from the servant quarters to the lower bathhouse. Only one problem remains: the marketplace. See, you can't just rob a vault, even one sitting beneath the world's fanciest bathtub, without a few extra supplies. Rope, oil, a chisel, maybe a charm or two to keep the curses from liquefying your lungs. And to get those, you need to visit the crooked, riotous, endlessly suspicious underbelly of the city. The market, now. This isn't the kind of place tourists visit. It's not the spices in the sun part of town with glistening pomegranates and slow-moving music. No, this part smells like damp copper and grilled eel, and the vendors shout like auctioneers cursed with eternal sore throats. You make your way there at dawn, wrapped in a modest cloak, your face partially obscured by a cheap headscarf. The skull hums in your bag. Remember, it says, no names, no promises, and never eat anything someone offers you for free. Why not? Because it's probably sentient, the skull says flatly. You duck under a canopy of dyed fabrics flapping in the wind. One stall sells knives shaped like fish. Another offers perfumes that claim to attract lovers, repel demons, or convince camels to behave. A third claims to sell fragments of Noah's Ark, conveniently sliced into jewelry. You pass a group of storytellers arguing over whose ancestor stole the first magic carpet. One is clearly lying. Another might actually be floating. Eventually, you find what you're looking for: a stall draped in animal bones and glittering with strange metal trinkets. Behind it stands a man who looks like he once arm-wrestled a djinn and lost, but took a souvenir finger in return. He doesn't smile when you approach. "Name?" he growls. "No name," you reply, following the skull's advice. "Purpose?" You tap your satchel lightly. The skull grins audibly. The vendor's eyes narrow. "Ah, you're the one." He pulls out a bundle of cloth and unrolls it slowly. Inside, wax-sealed vials, a length of dark silk, 2 rings etched with glyphs, and a thin blade that looks like it was made from starlight and bad decisions. "Tools for a quiet job," he says. "1 vault?" You nod. "Depth? Below bathhouse?" He whistles. "You're either brave," he says, "or very, very broke." You glance at your coin pouch. A few of the cursed gold coins jingle inside. You don't mention that. Instead, you pass him 2 silver dinars and a charm shaped like a lion's tongue. He nods once. "Don't use the ring unless your soul's ready to argue." You don't ask what that means. You leave the market heavier than before. Heavier in supplies, heavier in doubt, and definitely heavier in things that might cause moral collapse. The skull chimes in. "Perfect. Now all we need is a plan that definitely won't get you killed." "Oh good," you say dryly. Just that. As you weave back through the alleys, you catch sight of something, or someone, following you. A shadow, small and fast. You duck into a side street, press your back to a sun-warmed wall, and wait. A child steps out. Not threatening, probably. Dusty face, wide eyes, carrying a basket of flatbread. "Are you the one with the talking head?" she whispers. You blink. "What?" "My cousin works for the tea lady. She says you carry a thing." The child gestures to your satchel. You feel the skull trying not to laugh. "Tell her no one likes a gossip," it mutters. You crouch to the child's level. "What do you want?" "I want in." You blink again. "In what?" "Your job. I can help. I'm small. I can fit through vents." Of course, vents. Historians still argue whether child thieves were common in 10th century Baghdad or just popular storytelling devices. But if they existed, they were like this one: sharp, fast, and mildly terrifying. You sigh. "What's your name?" She crosses her arms. "No names?" "Fair enough." You give her half a flatbread coin and tell her to wait by the east wall of the sheikh's estate 3 nights from now. She grins, disappears like smoke. The skull chuckles in your bag. "Well, look at you," it says. "Recruiting already? I'm so proud." You roll your eyes. "We're not a team." "Sure," it says, "and I'm not technically dead." By the time you return to the compound, the sun is sinking again. Another day vanished into shadows. Another plan stitched together with stolen rope. Bad ideas, and a skull with too many opinions. But it's happening. Soon, you'll descend into the vault. Soon, you'll learn why the skull hums when you get close to gold, and whether any of this, any of you, is going to survive it. The moon is a perfect crescent tonight, sharp as a scimitar and just as judgmental. You're kneeling on a rooftop, overlooking the bathhouse courtyard. The air smells like jasmine and warm stone. Somewhere below, water trickles in tiled channels. The kind of peaceful sound you'd enjoy if you weren't moments away from committing an act that could either elevate you to myth or get you embalmed with zero ceremony. The skull is nestled in your satchel, which now contains wax-sealed vials, a rope soaked in oil, the cursed copy of the vault key, and a worryingly small amount of backup plans. "Time check," you whisper. The skull hums like a tuning fork. "Servants just switched shifts. Jibril is in the kitchens tasting rice. That gives us 23 minutes. Not 22? I'd like to believe in your potential." You lower yourself silently into the courtyard. The rope bites into your palms, and your heart thuds in your ears. This part's not glamorous, just fear, sweat, and the odd prayer to a god who may or may not be invested in your success tonight. Your feet hit the tiled floor with a soft slap. You press yourself against a wall, listening. Nothing. Just the steady gurgle of water and the flutter of moth wings near a lantern. You creep to the bathhouse entrance. The door is locked, of course, but your wax key slides into the mechanism like a charm. You twist. The bolt clicks, and you're in. The inside is dark, humid, and thick with steam. The rich scent of oils clings to every surface. Cedarwood, rose, maybe even myrrh. You step carefully over the mosaic floor, passing marble benches and rows of drying towels embroidered with gold thread, vaults beneath the third tub on the left. The skull whispers. The one with the lion head spout? Classic overcompensation. You kneel beside it. The lion's face stares blankly ahead, mouth open in an eternal roar. You reach into the satchel and pull out the thin chisel. The tiles beneath the tub look like ordinary marble. But when you tap them lightly, the third one gives a hollow echo. Hidden hatch, just like the skull said. Lift the edge, it instructs. Careful, it's pressure balanced, too fast, and the stone pops slightly with a hiss. You'll trigger a poisoned needle. The skull finishes, a little late. You freeze. Nothing happens. You exhale. Maybe warn me sooner next time. Where's the fun in that? You lift the tile fully, revealing a square shaft descending into darkness. Iron rungs are bolted to the sides, leading down into a place that smells of metal, damp earth, and something older than rot. You climb down slowly. Each rung groans under your weight. The walls around you narrow, The air grows colder. And then, finally, your feet touch solid stone. A corridor stretches out ahead, walls carved with strange symbols, half faded by time. You take a hesitant step forward, and a gust of air hits you in the face, chilling but dry. A scent rides it, faint but distinct. Clove and ink? I remember this smell. The skull whispers. This was mine. You glance at it. What was? My vault. You stop walking. I thought this was the sheikh's vault. It is now, the skull says bitterly. But long ago, it belonged to someone else. It doesn't elaborate. Here's a mainstream historical fact for you. Many noble homes and palaces in medieval Islamic cities featured secret underground chambers. Some were for storage, others were escape routes. A few were rumored to be holding pens for spirits, jinn, or even books deemed too dangerous to read. You reach the door. It's made of thick cedar, reinforced with brass bands and etched with a single word, Yusr. Ease. The skull snorts. Ironic. You press the copy key into the brass lock. It turns. Grudgingly, the door creaks open, revealing a vault that doesn't match the city above. This room is ancient, older than the sheikh, older than the palace, possibly older than the city. Stone pillars rise to a vaulted ceiling painted with constellations no longer mapped. Glass jars glimmer with powdered minerals. Scrolls line wooden racks. And in the center, on a pedestal surrounded by faintly glowing tiles, rests a box. Simple. Black. Unmarked. You step toward it. Wait, the skull says sharply. Don't cross the tiles. Why not? They're new and humming. You crouch! The tiles look ordinary. But when you press your ear close, you hear it. A faint vibration. A hum. Like the purring of a cat that's also threatening your life. You reach into your satchel and pull out the ring from the market vendor. You slip it onto your finger. The humming stops. Just like that, you cross the tiles. You lift the box. It's lighter than you expect. Inside, a book, bound in green leather, etched with gold ink so fine it seems to shimmer even in the dark. It doesn't have a title. The skull gasps. My book, it whispers. My treatise. You open the cover. The pages are dense with diagrams, stars, handwritten notes, and, on the first page, a signature. By the hand of Al-Tibr al-Nafi'i. The skull is silent. Was that your name? You ask. Yes, it says softly. Once, you flip another page, and the vault door slams shut behind you. The temperature drops instantly. The skull hisses. He knows. Who? The sheikh, the skull says. This was a trap. You draw the thin blade from your belt. Footsteps echo down the hall behind the sealed door. You probably won't survive this, the skull says. You always say that? But this time I mean it. You press your ear to the vault door, listening. Footsteps, slow, deliberate, accompanied by the clink of metal and the rustle of silk. One person, no, two, maybe three. You step back, heart pounding, as the skull begins to chant softly in your satchel. What are you doing? Looking for options? What kind of options? The kind that make very loud noises or turn bones into powder. Can you stall them? Do I have a choice? Technically, yes. Spiritually, not at all. You scan the room. No visible exits, no secret levers, just the book, the tiles, the pillars, and the strange resonance in the air that feels like standing on the edge of a thunderstorm. The door groans again, and then it opens, not blasted inward, but gliding with unnerving smoothness, as if it were never locked at all. The man who steps inside is not dressed like a sheikh, not even like a guard. He wears the robes of a scholar, green, embroidered, heavy with symbols that shift when you don't look directly at them. His eyes are pale gold, His smile is sharp. "I see you found it," he says. You grip the book tighter. "And who are you supposed to be? The librarian?" The man laughs, not kindly. "I am the successor, the rightful steward of Altiber's work." He raises one hand. Behind him, 2 guards step forward, swords drawn. Their faces are blank, not nervous, not angry, just empty. You recognize that look. You've seen it in a mirror once or twice, when the skull was whispering in your ear during a job you shouldn't have taken. "They're enthralled," you mutter. "Of course," the skull says. Mind-melted, dream-eaten, old magic, not illegal, but heavily frowned upon. The scholar steps closer. "You are not the first to try and steal from this place," he says. "But you are the first to open the vault without bleeding." "Funny," you say. "I was just about to start," and you throw the vial. It smashes against the glowing tile and erupts in a burst of blue-white flame. The air explodes into a blinding pulse, knocking the guards back and sending the scholar stumbling. You don't hesitate. You run, straight across the room, up a side pillar, springing off it like you're possessed. The ceiling's fresco cracks as you grab hold of a torch sconce and swing around toward the door. The scholar yells something in a tongue that isn't meant for mortal mouths. Your head aches. Your teeth buzz. You keep moving. The corridor narrows. Dust spills from the ceiling. The vault is destabilizing. You sprint past the guards as they recover. 1 swings, 2 slow. You duck, pivot, and shove the second into the wall. He crumples like a puppet. The scholar shouts again, louder. You feel it ripple in your spine. "Keep moving!" the skull screams. You climb, up the iron rungs, back toward the bathhouse. The entire shaft now groans with pressure. Something is pushing against the world itself. The old vault doesn't like to be disturbed. You burst into the bathhouse, steam still swirling, lanterns still flickering. The door you unlocked before is gone, replaced by a solid stone wall. Trapped. "Options?" you gasp. The skull is silent. "Seriously?" "Then, up," it says. You look up. Skylight. A narrow slit. Maybe 2 feet wide. Maybe. You don't question. You grab the nearest bath bench, drag it under the opening, climb. The ceiling is slick with condensation. Your fingers slip once, then find purchase. You wedge your shoulder into the slit. Glass cracks. "Any final words?" the skull mutters. "Yeah." You grunt. Duck. You twist, kick, and explode upward. The glass shatters. You tumble out onto the rooftop, sliced and steaming. The night air is cold. Your hands are burning. Somewhere below, the scholar's voice howls in frustration. You don't wait to hear the rest. You run across tiled roofs, through hanging laundry, past a startled owl perched on a weather vane. The city below glitters with lamps and secrets and whispers of things that almost caught you. By the time you reach the alley where your mule is tethered, you're shaking. You mount, you ride, fast and quiet. Behind you, the bathhouse collapses inward with a muffled roar. No fire, no smoke, just absence, like it was never there. You don't speak again until the desert swallows the last of the city lights. Then the skull says, "Congratulations, you stole from the past." You glance down at the book in your pack. "What now?" you ask. "Now," the skull says. "Now we read." You don't camp that night. You just keep riding. The desert is quieter than usual, as if the sand itself knows you're carrying something that doesn't belong in this age. The stars above shimmer in unfamiliar constellations. Somewhere in the distance, a jackal howls once and then falls silent. You try to focus on the sound of hooves, the rhythm of breath, but your mind keeps drifting back to the vault, to the scholar's eyes, to the book. The book is bound in leather that wasn't cut from any animal you know. The pages feel warm, like skin kissed by the sun too long. The symbols shift as you glance across them. refusing to stay still. You tried reading a sentence once. The words slipped sideways and crawled off the page like insects. The skull laughed so hard it nearly shook itself apart. You're not ready. It told you. You believed it. At dawn, you find shelter in a ruined watchtower half buried by dunes. You don't light a fire. Instead, you huddle in a corner, arms wrapped around your knees, the book between your boots. So, you whisper. Now we read? Not yet, the skull replies. Now we listen. To what? To the past, screaming. It's not a metaphor. The moment you crack the book open, even a sliver, the air goes heavy. A tone, not a sound, not exactly, fills your head. Like a memory of a scream, distant and desperate. You shut the book again. Nope. Smart, the skull says. Very smart. You sleep fitfully. When you wake, sand has coated your boots, and the sun is already blistering. You ride again. No destination. Just away. Always away. The second night, you make camp beneath a jagged outcrop of basalt. You finally allow yourself a fire, though it's small and smokes too much. You unwrap the book again, just to stare at it. What is it, really? You ask. The skull hums. A map, a key, a curse, a love letter to something that never should have existed. You're helpful as ever. You stole it. I just translate. So translate! Not here. Why not? Because we're not alone. You look around. Nothing. Just darkness and wind and the slow shifting of sand. But you believe the skull. You bury the book, wrap it in oilcloth, tuck it in a crack beneath your sleeping mat, weigh it down with a rock. Then you sleep with your knife in your hand and your back to stone. The third night, you dream, you're standing in the vault again. The book is open. The scholar is laughing, but his eyes are gone. 2 black holes filled with starlight. The fresco above is peeling. Behind it, not plaster, but rows and rows of teeth, chattering in unison. You wake screaming. The skull is humming a lullaby in a language that doesn't use vowels. Time to move, it says. You don't ask why. You saddle up and go. You ride east this time, toward the mountains, toward old monasteries where dead languages still cling to the stone. The skull mutters names you don't recognize. You write them down anyway. Some of them hurt to spell. One of them makes your nose bleed. 4 days pass. On the 5th, you cross a caravan trail and meet an old woman selling glass eyes from a wagon. She offers you tea, you drink it. It tastes like rust and lavender. She asks what's in your pack. You lie. She smiles. You're walking crooked, she says. Like something's watching you from the inside out. You leave before nightfall. The skull doesn't speak for 2 days after that. When it does, it says, I think she used to be someone important. Like what? A librarian. From the vault? No, from the other side. You don't ask what that means, because you know, deep down, that whatever game you've stepped into, it's bigger than cities and older than maps. The book was never meant to be stolen. It was meant to be found. By someone? At some time. And now it's you. So you keep riding, past dunes that whisper, past wells that give no water, past ruins where no birds sing, until, at last, you see it. A single tower, half collapsed, leaning like a drunkard against the horizon. Smoke curls from a chimney. A goat stares at you from the doorway. The skull whispers, We're here. You ask, Where? And it answers, Where the past begins to remember you. You tie the horse to a post that looks like it hasn't supported anything in decades. The goat watches, blinking slowly, chewing something invisible. Its horns are carved with runes, not painted, carved, deep, intricate, alive. You try not to stare too long. You fail. The door to the leaning tower creaks open by itself. Naturally, You step inside. The air is thick and smells like candle wax, vinegar, and something older, like parchment left too long in a grave. The room tilts slightly, like the whole building is trying to shrug off gravity. Shelves line the walls, crammed with bottles, books, bones, and bags stitched from something gray and coarse. A voice, warm and flat like a well-used blanket, greets you. You've brought it, then you turn. No one. The voice came from nowhere and everywhere. Brought what? You say, playing dumb. The skull chuckles in your satchel. A woman steps into view from behind a hanging curtain. She looks about 70, but not in the usual way. Her skin is folded like paper maps, and her eyes are silver, not metaphorically, but like actual polished silver. I could smell the ink from the dunes, she says. You hesitate. Then, because nothing about this journey has made sense, you ask the obvious. What is this place? She raises one hand, tracing an invisible sigil in the air. It glows briefly. The tilt of the room sharpens. You feel the pull in your stomach. This is a hinge, she says. Where time opens, where memory creaks. You blink, she sighs. A library, dear, of sorts. You laugh, because of course it is. The kind of laugh that gets stuck halfway down your throat and turns into a cough. She gestures for the satchel. You hesitate, but the skull speaks. Let her. She won't open it. Not here. She doesn't flinch at the voice. Doesn't question why you're carrying a sentient, talking skull that hums in forgotten languages. Instead, she nods and takes the satchel like it's a loaf of bread, sets it gently on the table. Then she walks around it 3 times, clockwise, counterclockwise, then again. I was hoping it would be you, she says. You blink again. Me? She smiles. And in that smile is sadness so old it's gone soft. You walk like someone who left a name behind. That's who the book calls. You sit. You let her pour you tea. It tastes like the memory of thunderstorms. She doesn't ask your name, and you don't offer it. Names have weight here. Names are fragile. She lights 6 candles. Each one casts a shadow in the shape of a door. You pretend not to notice. The skull hums a warning note in C minor. You slip a piece of cloth over the satchel. So? You say, what now? Now you learn to read. I thought I wasn't ready. You weren't. But the book's opened its spine to you. That means it's changing. Or you are. Which is worse? She smiles again. Yes, she gives you a room at the top of the tower. The stairs spiral without end. Literally. You count 147 steps going up. Later, you'll count 236 going down. You'll never figure it out. Your room has a bed, a bowl of black salt, and a mirror that doesn't reflect your face, just your outline. It's enough. For the first time in weeks, you sleep, and you dream of the book. It's open. Its pages are blank, but you feel the words inside your bones, moving like fish in a net. The skull is floating beside you, wreathed in ink smoke. You're starting to remember. It says, remember what? That this isn't the first time you've held it. You wake with ink on your fingertips. The next morning, the woman teaches you the first glyph. It isn't a letter. It's a sound shaped like hunger. You speak it by accident and the bowl of salt cracks in half. She smiles. Better than most. You learn fast, not because you're clever, but because the book demands it. You find yourself dreaming in alphabets, muttering words that cause shadows to squirm. The skull starts calling you apprentice instead of thief. One day, the woman hands you a vial filled with violet sand. For emergencies, she says. What kind? The kind where your shadow tries to eat you. It happens later that night. You survive, barely, and each day, the book opens a little more. It shows you things. A city with no doors, a song made of teeth, a clock that ticks backward and forward depending on who's watching. It whispers truth so old the stars forgot them, and you write them down, carefully, using ink made from ash and regret. You stop counting the days. Eventually, the woman tells you you've passed the first threshold. You laugh and say, "What's the second?" She looks at you, eyes heavy. "Letting it in? The book," she explains, "doesn't just want to be read, it wants to be believed. Once you believe it, things change. Not just in your mind, but around you. Your reflection starts flickering. The candles don't burn down anymore. A spider weaves letters into your windowsill. The goat speaks a riddle in your dream, and then headbutts you awake. You've become part of its ecosystem. You're not just a reader anymore. You're becoming a verse. The skull warns you. You're merging. You nod. You knew it the moment you forgot your own handwriting. Soon, it will be time to move again, but not yet. For now, the book is open, and it's listening. The tower breathes with you now. It creaks when you sigh, sways when you pace, and hums lowly when you're reading aloud. The mirror in your room stops showing even your outline. It now reflects things that haven't happened yet. Sometimes you glimpse yourself walking backward, sometimes standing in a field of blue fire, sometimes holding a book that bleeds when opened. The old woman begins calling you reader. "You've earned it," she says one morning, while the sun spills sideways through the window. "I thought I was still learning." "You are," she replies. "But now the book is learning you too." It sounds like a threat and a blessing. The skull seems nervous, not scared, just cautious, as if something's drawing closer, something not named yet, but inevitable. "The book remembers," it says. "More than you, more than her." You ask what it remembers. It hums. You, before. That day, you open the book and find a page that wasn't there before. Not blank, not full, just waiting. A title appears at the top. "On the Threshold of Unmaking." You stare at it for hours, afraid to read the first line. Because you know you wrote it. Not now, not recently, but once. In a life the book hasn't let you remember yet. Later, downstairs, the old woman hands you a spoon carved from bone and whispers, "Stir counterclockwise if the tea lies." It doesn't make sense until you brew tea that boils without heat and tastes like disappointment. You stir counterclockwise. The tea turns to ink. You write with it that night, not knowing the words until they're already on the page. If you dream in alphabets long enough, you forget your mother tongue. You feel it in your teeth. Weeks pass, or what you call weeks, though time here bends like candle wax. You measure it now by readings, by openings. Each glyph you learn rewrites a part of you. You begin to speak with birds. Stones roll out of your way. The sky flickers when you're distracted. The tower tilts further. No one notices. One night, during a thunderless storm, the goat speaks again. Not in dreams this time. It stands in the kitchen, chewing lavender, and says, "You'll have to choose soon." You blink. Between what? Between who you were and what you can't become unless you forget them. You ask what happens if you choose neither. The goat shrugs. Then the book will choose for you. You throw a dish at it. It vanishes in a puff of chalk dust. The skull sighs. You're almost at the center. You sit on your bed, hands trembling. You haven't written in days. The book has stopped opening. The woman knocks only once before entering. She doesn't bring tea this time. Just a knife. She hands it to you. Hilt first. It wants a name. You look down at the knife. Its blade is dull, but its presence is sharp. "What kind of name?" "Yours." You shake your head. "I don't remember it." "That's why it has power." You hesitate, then ask, "What if I give it a false one?" She smiles. "Then you'll become the lie you tell." The book opens that night. No wind, no whisper, just the sound of yes. It flips to a chapter written in reverse, and yet somehow you read it forward. The skull goes silent. The shadows in the corners stop twitching. Each word you read erases a memory, a friend's face, the smell of your childhood room, a song that once made you weep. You try to stop. The book doesn't let you, because this is the cost. Not knowledge, not power, but absence. You're being emptied to make space for the book, and part of you doesn't mind. Later, you find the knife again. This time, it's in your hand. You don't remember picking it up. You trace your name in the wood of your desk. Not the name you were born with, but the one the book gave you. Ink bearer. The knife vibrates. The book opens. The chapter glows. And for the first time, you see it, your own handwriting, pages and pages of it, written in ink made from your voice. It says, "You've made it this far. You've lost enough. Now choose what to keep." You close the book. The tower breathes out. The mirror shatters, and you fall into sleep without dreams. You wake in the library, spine aching and throat dry. The book is open beside you, but the pages are blank. Not erased, not waiting, just done. You close it, expecting the usual pulse beneath the cover. Nothing. You're not sure if that's good. The skull rolls itself across the floor and bumps your foot. "No going back," it says, voice smaller now, outside the tower. The fog has thinned. You can finally see beyond the cliffs, just enough to know there's something vast out there. A city of spires made from bone and bell metal, shifting in the distance like it's breathing. Above it, a hole in the sky shaped like an eye. Watching, the old woman brews something that smells like regret and peppermints. She doesn't speak, just hands you a key. It's warm. You ask what it opens. She nods toward a door at the top of the spiral stairs you've never dared to climb. "It doesn't open a room," she says. "It opens a decision. That night, you don't sleep. You climb. The stairs spiral tighter as you go. The walls whisper in languages you've nearly learned. You recognize fragments, verbs of betrayal, nouns for stars that never lived. At the top is a door that wasn't carved, but written. Its hinges curl like calligraphy. The knob pulses beneath your hand. You unlock it. There's no sound, only a sudden shift, like the tower just looked away for a moment. Inside, a room full of mirrors. None of them reflect you. Each one shows a version. You, wearing red. You, bleeding gold. You, with no face. You, laughing as the world burns. You, older, younger, unborn, forgotten. Each mirror hums with choice. The key is still in your hand, but now it's a pen. The mirrors ripple. The skull appears beside you, though it didn't climb the stairs. "Which one is real?" you ask. The skull chuckles. "Real's just the version you edit last." You walk among the mirrors. One shows you sitting in a library deep underground, cataloging dangerous books. Another shows you walking through a desert of glass, followed by children made of sand. Another shows you asleep forever, beneath a tree that blooms only when no one is watching. And one, just one, shows you back home, in your old room. Younger, innocent, whole, but in that version, the book never came, and your eyes are empty. You drop the key pen. It doesn't hit the floor. The mirror in front of you cracks. You don't flinch. You reach forward and pull yourself through. On the other side, the tower is gone. The old woman, the goat, the book, the skull, vanished. Only the weight of words remains. You're standing on a cliff. The wind tastes like endings. And you realize the book was never something you read. It was something you became. Your hands are inked with phrases you don't recall writing. Your bones hum with forgotten verses. Your heart beats in stanzas. You look back, there's nothing behind you but silence, and the faint smell of tea. You step forward, toward the city of bone and bell metal. It welcomes you without fanfare, because it's always known your name, even when you didn't. And as the sky closes its eye, you begin to write again, not in a book, but on the world itself. Each step a sentence, each breath a spell, each heartbeat a comma in a story that refuses to end. Not yet, not tonight. Sleep well, ink bearer. You've turned the final page. But there's always another volume waiting. The city welcomes you with silence, not celebration. Its gates don't creak. They whisper open like a sigh. Streets bend like thoughts you almost remembered. Lamps burn with a flame that doesn't cast shadows. You walk without knowing if it's dusk or dawn. Time here feels optional. You pass figures cloaked in script, words crawling over their skin like tame spiders. None of them speak. They nod, some bow, One drops a page at your feet. You pick it up. It's blank, but heavy with potential. You reach what might be a square, or maybe it's a chapter. In the center stands a statue of yourself, holding a book that doesn't exist anymore. You're older in stone, eyes closed, as if listening for the next sentence. The air shifts. A wind with a spine curls around your shoulders. It carries the scent of ink and something burnt. You hear the city's heart. Not a beat, but a constant scratching, pen against parchment, claw against door, memory against time. You find the library without looking for it. Its doors are made of mismatched covers, some bound in leather, others in regret. Inside, no books, just shelves full of decisions. You recognize some. The time you stayed, the day you lied, the morning you almost chose peace. The skull is here again. It sits on a pedestal, bored. This place is too neat, it grumbles. No chaos, no footnotes chasing their own endings. You ignore it. Your hands move on their own, searching for something you haven't named. You find it, a box, locked, heavy, your name carved into it, but not in a way that feels like ownership, more like accusation. You ask, "What's inside?" The skull says, "Only what you've never dared write." You carry it to a desk. Sit. Wait. The box opens itself. Inside, a quill made of your hair, a sheet of midnight, a single drop of blood you don't remember giving. You understand. You begin to write again, not to tell a story, but to undo one. Words fall from your fingers like rain, clumsy, angry, holy. The room responds. Shelves rearrange. The floor cracks. Somewhere below, something bound wakes up. You write names you never learned, places no map survived, promises you didn't know you made. Your hand burns, but you keep going. The skull watches, silent, respectful. Then, footsteps. Someone enters. You know them. They look like memory, half truth, half regret. They speak your name the way it sounded when you still believed in happy endings. They ask, "Are you ready?" You say, "No," but you stand, leave the page unfinished, because that's how it must end, unfinished. Outside, the city shifts again. Taller now, brighter, or maybe just realer. You walk with the skull under your arm and the unwritten story in your throat. The path leads upward, always upward. You don't ask where. You already know. The stairs unfold from the ground like an invitation. Not built, but remembered. They lead up, into nothing, into everything. As you climb, your legs feel like riddles, each step less certain, more symbolic. Behind you, the city hums like a sleeping god. Above, the sky flickers with stories yet to be born. The skull complains. "I liked it better when we were stealing from tombs." You say nothing. Eventually, the staircase ends at a door with no frame, floating mid-air. It's made of sand, or time, or both. You knock, but the sound is absorbed. Still, the door opens inward, always inward. Inside, stars held in glass jars, galaxies crammed into scrolls, constellations rearranged into footnotes. It's not a room, not exactly, more like the inside of a question. And at the center floats the sky archivist. They have no face, but their robes shimmer with a million forgotten proverbs. Their hands are covered in ink. They write not with quills, but with starlight. When they speak, the air forgets to echo. "You wrote again," they say. Not a question, a certainty. You nod. The unfinished page still pulses in your pocket, warm and restless. The archivist gestures to a long table. It holds countless books, all with your handwriting. Some smell like regret, others like triumph. Some bleed at the spine. Historians still argue whether this room ever truly existed. The archivist says softly, "Whether memory can be recorded, Or if it always rewrites itself to flatter the survivor, you place the skull on the table, it winks. The archivist regards it unamused. Still following him? He follows me now, you mutter. There is a pause, thick and binding. Then the archivist waves their hand, and your books open themselves. Pages flutter like startled birds. They form patterns in the air, scenes from your journey, fragments of dreams, dialogue you never said aloud but meant every word of. And then the box, the one you unlocked earlier, now reappears, heavier. Inside, not paper this time, but mirrors. Each reflects you, but differently. One shows who you were before you stole the scroll. Another reveals who you became while searching for the skull's origin. A third shows you with no face, no name, just the outline of longing. You ask, "What happens if I stop writing?" The archivist answers, "Then the story ends, and you vanish." "But what if I write something new?" The archivist smiles, not with lips, but with light. "Then you rewrite yourself, not escape, evolve." That word hits hard. Because deep down, you've always suspected this wasn't just a tale about a thief and a talking skull. It was about you, the version of you that keeps trying to be someone else in every chapter, hoping maybe the next twist, the next disguise, the next city will be the one where you get to stay. The archivist steps aside. You may add your volume to the shelves, or burn it. You hesitate. Burning sounds tempting. Final, clean, but silence never taught you anything. So you place the unfinished page into an empty binding. Write one last line in trembling ink. "To leave is not to flee. To write is not to lie." The cover seals itself. The book floats into place. The shelves sigh with completion. And somewhere below the floorboards, the city begins to dream you anew. You turn to leave, but the archivist stops you. "One more thing," they whisper. They hand you a new scroll. Blank, pure, waiting. This is for what comes next. Not the past, not the legend, just you. You accept it with hands that no longer tremble. The door reopens. The stairs downward glimmer with moonlight. The skull sighs. "I hope this doesn't mean we're done with tombs." You smile. No promises. And with that, you descend. Back into a world that still doesn't believe in talking skulls, stolen scrolls, or skybound archivists. But that's fine. You believe enough for both of you. You walk for days. Maybe years. Time bends in stories like this, especially after visiting a place that shouldn't exist. The scroll the archivist gave you rests in your pack, weightless and yet impossibly heavy. Not in mass, but in possibility. The skull, swinging at your side in a velvet satchel now, hums tunelessly. "Do you think we're heroes yet?" You chuckle. "I think we're complicated footnotes. Villages pass. Languages you've never spoken roll from your tongue like native spells. You eat food that remembers your grandmother's kitchen, though you've never been there. Strangers recognize you as someone else. Some salute, some run. One man weeps and kisses your hand. You stop asking why? It's not long before rumors catch up with you. Whispers of a lighthouse that doesn't cast light, but dreams. Of a tower that grew overnight from the regrets of 100 monks. And of course, the book that writes back. That last one catches your attention. You follow the rumors through wind-blown markets, under moonless skies, through forests that rearrange their paths when no one is looking. Until finally, you find it. The library. Not a library. The library. The one no map marks. The one every child dreams of but forgets before breakfast. It's carved into the ribs of a dead leviathan. A creature too big for any sea. Too old for any myth. Its bones form the walls. Its teeth are the spires. And its eyes still flicker when the wind shifts. You enter without knocking. Inside, books breathe, not a metaphor. They inhale, exhale, sigh, mutter. Some cry, some giggle, Shelves move like tides. Lanterns float untethered. A cat made of smoke trails behind you, occasionally judging your posture. A woman sits at a desk made from a dragon's spine. She does not look up. You approach. Only when you place your blank scroll down does she acknowledge you. "You've been expected," she says, her voice like rain on marble. "The book is in the West Wing. It's been lonely." You nod, say nothing. The West Wing is dark, lit only by the glow of restless ink. You pass books that try to bite, books that flirt, books that beg you not to open them. You obey none of them. At the very end of the hall, a single desk, a chair, a candle that refuses to burn out, and the book, leather darker than forgetting, corners etched in a language that curls behind your eyes. No title. It opens as you approach, not slowly, not dramatically, casually, like it was just waiting for you to catch up. The page is blank. You sit, you pick up the quill that appears without being handed, and then something moves on the page. Words, not yours, not yet. "Welcome back. We've missed you. What shall we become this time?" The skull grins from your side. "Told you stories follow us." You lean forward, touch the page, and begin to write. But this time, the book writes back. Not a diary, not a ledger, a collaborator. It anticipates your intentions, challenges your lies, offers better metaphors. At times, it asks you questions. Why did you really leave that city? Was the skull always just a skull? When did you first become afraid of silence? You don't always answer, but the act of being asked rearranges you. The pages turn with a hunger not for plot, but for truth. Eventually, you understand. This isn't just a story you're writing. It's a conversation with everything you tried to forget. And the book, whatever it is, whoever made it, is here not to trap you, but to free you, page by page, sentence by sentence. And as you write, you begin to disappear, not in a tragic way, but in the way clouds disappear when they've finally rained enough to let the sun through. And somewhere, far below the desk and the paper and the bones of the Leviathan, the world begins again. But differently this time, because now, you've rewritten the ending. And for once, it's one you want to live in. You wake up in a bed made of leaves and lullabies. The book is gone, so is the library. But the writing remains, inked across your fingertips, your forearms, even the soft places behind your knees. Not words, not quite. More like the memory of words. A story lived so fully it became part of your body. You stand. The ground greets you with warmth. The sky above blinks like it's just now opening its eyes for the first time. Colors you don't have names for shimmer on the horizon. There's no sun, but everything glows. The skull, ever present, says, "This looks promising." You nod. Where are we? It floats up, spins once, settles. A world that didn't exist until you wrote it. You taste the thought. So, this is the story? No, says the skull. Voice soft now. This is the result of the story. What comes after? You begin to walk. Trees hum lullabies. Rivers carry reflections of moments that haven't happened yet. Every step you take creates a path behind you, but only after you've lifted your foot. Eventually, you reach a hill made entirely of question marks. You sit on the highest one, and wait, not because you know who's coming, but because you know someone will, and they do. A child, barefoot and glowing, arrives with a backpack made of stitched-together maps. Their face is familiar in the way dreams are. You don't know them, but you understand them. They sit beside you without speaking. After a moment, they ask, "Is it true?" You look at them. They clarify that you found the place where thoughts become things, where stories stop being pretend. You tilt your head. "Who told you that?" They shrug. "Everyone, or no one. I heard it in a lullaby." You smile. "Then yes, it's true." The child nods, then asks the real question. "Can I go there?" You think about it, not because you doubt the answer, but because some truths deserve to be offered slowly, at last, you say, "Only if you bring your own story." They smile, unzip their backpack. Inside, a journal, half full, a compass that points to curiosity, a key with no door, and a feather made of starlight. You nod. Good. You say, "You're ready." And in that moment, the hill rises, becomes a tower, becomes a stairwell, becomes a library once more. The child enters, and the doors close behind them. But you don't follow. You've had your chapter. Now it's their turn. The skull says nothing, just floats beside you, like a period at the end of a sentence. The wind smells like possibility. You lie down in the grass, look up at the blank sky, and wait for the next dream to find you. Because once you've entered a story, stories never leave you. They just wait for the right moment to turn the page. You drift. Not asleep, not awake, but inside a hush shaped like a breath held too long. The grass beneath you hums like it remembers lullabies your mother never sang. The sky has turned into paper, vast and waiting. A single word floats above you. Return. You do not move, you do not speak. Still, the story listens, because now you are the dream. The skull, resting beside you like an old friend, finally speaks again. Not a riddle, not a warning, just this. You asked what was real? You nod. And now? It continues. Voice barely there. Do you still care? You smile, not because you have an answer, but because you've stopped needing one. Because the real magic wasn't in finding truth. It was in believing long enough to ask. The wind gathers itself and begins to shape words. Not ink, not voice, just memory turned outward. It tells the final part of the story, and it sounds like this. You were born with a key sewn into your ribcage. You carried questions the world was afraid to answer. You listened to silence until it spoke back. You wrote your way out, and then you wrote your way home. The forest rises around you like applause. Trees bow, shadows stretch to bless your feet. A gate opens, a gate you didn't notice before, made of stitched together what-ifs. You pass through. Behind you, the world you rewrote. Ahead of you, the next blank page. The skull fades, or maybe it never existed. Your hands tingle, not with magic, with readiness, because now the pen is yours, and you know how to use it. So write, write without fear. Write until the dream wakes up and writes back.
you